All right, let's talk some A.J. Dillon, why don't we? And we're going to start off with this play. The reason I wanted to make a video on A.J. Dillon is I really think A.J. Dillon is one of the better halfbacks in football. Like, I think that he's probably a top 10, I think at least a top 10 halfback in football, maybe even better. And I think that he will have a breakout season next year. He's already been great, but I just think that, I think we're going to start to see more of him. And to me, he's probably better than Aaron Jones, who I like a lot as well. And it's little things like this that I think he does so well. These are like veteran type moves that he's doing where it's going to start off to be a run to the right side of the screen, but watch what happens. So as you see, right when this play begins, you notice how 93 right there for Pittsburgh is going to be the key guy to watch. He's kind of following A.J. Dillon towards the gap that Dillon wants to run through. You can see how it's working, right? If Dillon continues to run towards the right, then 93 can get over and make sure that he makes that play. A.J. Dillon is already looking down the field before he even has the ball. He's paying attention to this, and he notices that that's going to be a tough gap to run through because, it's 93 is paying a good attention to making sure he covers up that gap. So instead, Dillon continues to run to his right because that's how the play works. You make your read left to right on that play. Very good read to not go through the first gap he saw, be a little bit more patient there, and he did a great job on that play. So the vision is something that you do notice when watching A.J. Dillon film. You really do. Like this one's another one where it's going to end up being kind of a similar thing, where what's going to happen is that it's going to be a run to the left side of the screen, so to the offense's right. And so watch what happens right when this play begins. Again, you see right here, so Rodgers gives Dillon the ball, and you see 91 for Arizona doing a good job of kind of leaning towards the right side of the screen. What it means is that for Dillon, he now knows that if he runs through the gap that he is currently heading towards, this means that he's probably not going to gain too many yards. And Dillon has the athleticism and the awareness to notice this stuff. I mean, you got to notice this, right? Trent Richardson would have ran straight forward and picked up 1 yard. Vision matters a lot with this stuff. Instead, he is going to move over, and he ends up picking up a good amount of yards right there. So, again, this is just understanding what the play is, figuring out a way to maximize the yardage totals that you could get. The offensive line gave you so many yards in that play, probably only 1 or 2. But Dillon added more value than just those 1 or 2 yards, and that's where running back's value really comes in, is turning a potential 2nd and 9 into a 2nd and 4. That's a big jump. That's from putting yourself in a bad situation to putting yourself in a good situation. And there's also stuff like this, because listen, the Packers offensive line, pretty good. You'll certainly take that, especially last year. So because of this, there would be times when A.J. Dillon would not have to do too much right away, and he still made the most of those opportunities. So on this play, I mean, you can see how this is, easily going to work. This is, there's no one in the middle of the field. So A.J. Dillon's going to have a great time if he gets the ball. As you see, Dillon does get the ball, and I'll pause it right here. There is a clear window for him to run, but what really comes into play now is going to be his acceleration. Look at him get up to a top speed pretty quickly. Yes, he didn't even break a 4.5 at the combine. That's fine. I don't care about how fast you run 40 yards. I care about how fast you run the first 10. And specifically, do you run the first 10 in pads and cleats and stuff? Not to say I don't care about 40 time. That stuff is something that you should pay attention to when evaluating guys. But, it's not an end-all, be-all by any means, and I think Dillon is, clear proof to be an exception to that rule. And still, a 4.5, that's not like he's running a 4.7 or anything. Also, let's go over to something like this. So what's going to happen here is that for A.J. Dillon, really what's interesting is the kind of the blocking concept in general. So you see how the right guard and right tackle are both going to be blocking those 2 Arizona players, which now means another Arizona player can sort of try to fill up that gap. If Dillon does try to run through there, then you see who's going to try to come over and make the play. Right when this play begins, you're going to notice that you see how this is working, right? There's a window for it to be made, but right here, it's not going to go for too many yards before contact arises, and this is where Dillon's power comes in to play. If I'm making a film study on Dillon, I'm not going to not talk about his power. He's a power back at the end of the day. That's a big part of what he does. Not to say that that's all he can do, but it's probably what he's best known for, is that and how big his quads are, and you're going to see him put those to good use right here. Watch him just get low, and he's able to, just pick up an extra 3 yards or so, more than what the average player would have on that play. So there's value. There's bringing something to the table. Why do you spend a 2nd round pick on A.J. Dillon? Well, that's why. Again, is that the best decision? I'll let you be the judge. But the reality is he's a really good halfback who you got with not that much value, and given how much the NFL values running backs, or people in the NFL value running backs, it certainly feels like a steal. Like one more play, this is going to be kind of a similar type idea where what's going to happen on this play is, again, it's going to be a very similar thing. Right when it begins, you notice how there's a, moment right here where it seems like an average halfback against an average linebacker creates not many yards. But what's going to happen? Watch Dillon just spin around him, and he's going to somehow stay on his feet here. I mean, what an incredible run. It didn't go for like a million yards or anything, but like that's just, again, that's added value. Hey, it's not going to be 2nd and 10. It's going to be 2nd and 5. That's a ton of value right there, and that's a lot of times what you want out of a halfback. It's not someone who's going to turn a 2-yard gain into a 98-yard gain, because that rarely happens. But this stuff can happen consistently, and A.J. Dillon can do it. So yeah, that's really my main thought on A.J. Dillon, really, is, I like A.J. Dillon. I think he's very good. And it's really, I think one of the interesting things about it is it's always so difficult to truly evaluate halfbacks in general. I mean, not like, okay, you can watch a halfback season and say, okay, that was a good season or a bad season. But then here's where it gets tricky, where someone like A.J. Dillon, who was one of the best halfbacks in football last year, well, how much does that actually matter? How much do we take that into consideration? Is he better than Christian McCaffrey now? Well, your gut says no, right? We've seen far more good seasons from Christian McCaffrey than we have from A.J. Dillon. There's no denying that. But the counter to that is, well, for halfbacks, a lot of times it's what have you done for me lately? Guys who get injured consistently get injured. So would you actually rather have Christian McCaffrey next year, knowing there's a high risk factor with he might not be able to return to form? Or would you rather have A.J. Dillon, who is healthy and who, should be, doesn't have a ton of wear and tear on his body these past few years and should be able to reach very high heights next year? But the flip side is, well, we know if Christian McCaffrey returns to form, he would be significantly better. It's really just a personal preference, but you can understand the logic behind each, and you can understand why, to use the argument with just the Packers of Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon, who would you rather have? Well, it's an interesting discussion, and you can argue both sides. Now, they don't care. They have them both, so it's irrelevant to them. But they should be very good. The Packers, very good running back room, and I think A.J. Dillon, I think he's going to surprise some people next year. I think people that are really paying attention to Dillon agree with me that he was fantastic. His advanced statistics were very good. His tape is very good. I always liked A.J. Dillon. I liked him out of college. I don't hate this selection whatsoever. Again, there's the argument of, is it ever worth drafting a running back in the 2nd round? I would probably say yes, and I think that A.J. Dillon might be that guy, might be someone who is worth it. We'll see, but I do think that A.J. Dillon, in certain scenarios, drafting a running back in the 2nd round can make sense, and this might be one of those scenarios. So it should be fascinating to see. But I do like A.J. Dillon a lot as a player, and I'm interested in seeing what he does. So that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on A.J. Dillon and the Packers? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.